All right, welcome in live now on a Sunday night, 1 week away from Selection Sunday. He's Riley Norris, former Alabama star. I'm Jim Dunaway from the Next Round. This is our basketball podcast. A lot to get ready and to talk about because we're on our way to Nashville for the SEC basketball tournament. Some work to be done there for some teams, but the SEC trending towards 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about UAB out at the Conference USA tournament in a second. Auburn got a big win that I personally think clinches their spot in the NCAA tournament. I'll get Riley's opinion on that. But let's first start with Alabama, who lost their last regular season game at Texas A&M. Riley, concerned or not with this team right now?
I would say you have to be a little bit concerned, not from the standpoint of just losing the game to A&M. I think it's from the standpoint of it's probably the third or fourth game in a row they haven't shot the ball particularly well, especially from three. They ended up 7 of 36 for 19% against A&M. Anytime you're on the road in a hostile environment like that, it's hard to win a game when you're 19% from the three-point line. So having said that, they have bounced back well. Every game they've lost this year, the next game they have bounced back pretty well. So I think they'll figure it out. But yeah, shooting wise, I mean, when it's a big part of your offense, you got to be able to make some shots. And some guys have been struggling as of late. But if they can turn that around, it's going to boost them.
Well, I asked Nate Oates this when he was on our show back in January. I said, "Do you worry about peaking too soon?" Now you played the game. Can you peak too soon? Can you be playing your best basketball in January and not be playing well this time of year? Because it does seem, since the Brandon Miller announcement from that court case, that this team has not been the same offensively as a group as it was before that announcement. Can you peak too early in basketball?
You can. The season's so long. I mean, you start back in the month of June preparing for the season. So you think about how long that is. But you look at last year's team, for instance. I mean, they went on the run, strong non-conference. They go to Gonzaga, they win. They beat Houston at home in December. And then once season, the SEC season started, they did pretty well. Then they started struggling. They finished about 500 or one game below. And then they were first round exit as a 6 seed last year. So you can peak too early. And I think that's what you kind of don't, you obviously are cautious as a coach, and as players, you're just trying to always get better, always improve in the gym, and always make sure that your best ball is still in the future.
I wonder, how do you do that? How do you when you get to this part of the season with the SEC tournament and then the one where you can't lose again? How do you try to refine your mojo, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's just going back, fixing the little things. I think it's being in the gym. I know the guys, NATO's, I know he don't have any problem with his guys getting shots up and being in the gym late, getting extra shots, getting extra work. So I think it's fixing the wrongs. So going back and look at the A&M film, looking what they can do better. Defensively, really wasn't that bad of a game, especially in the second half. But offensively, there's a lot of stuff you can improve on. They had so many careless turnovers, especially to start the game. You'd like to see those get cleaned up. And also, I think a faster start. I know Nate mentioned that in the press conference after the game was they're getting off the slow starts. You can't get in the hole, 8, 9, 10 points to a really good team, because then it makes that comeback really, really tough.
Yeah, down 17 and lucky to come back to beat Auburn, but they did win the SEC championship. I'll flip this question to you now. It seems like really great defensive teams can take Alabama out of their offensive rhythm. Tennessee has done it. Auburn, they played 85 minutes this year. I think Auburn's led 69 minutes this year. UConn did it back in the day. The only one, Houston led by 15. Alabama came back to win that game, but Houston's a good defensive team. What are these? I don't want to make it too simplistic here, but
Yeah.
the ones that seem to foul you a lot and dare the officials, they foul you 20 times, 40 times, and the officials call 20 fouls, but they don't call 40 fouls. Those that really get up in your grill, they're handsy, they get on you. How come that causes this team trouble?
I think you're right. You look at the Tennessee game, they played really, really tough defense. They're pressuring Alabama, pushing them off the lines, making every catch hard. Then you go to the Auburn game, and that's Auburn's MO since Bruce has been there. They're going to get up into you defensively, make you turn the ball over. They're going to put pressure on the refs to call the fouls. So I think, basically what it broke down to was A&M. Alabama was getting good shots against A&M. I don't think it was necessarily. Obviously, there were some shots that were tougher. Defender's hand was in the face of the whoever was taking the shot, but ultimately they had some open looks that just weren't going down. I mean, Mark Sears had a good bit of open looks. Brandon had some open looks. Then you look at Rylan Griffin missed a couple threes, so they had good looks. I think at this time of the year, that's what they're going to see. So they're going to look on film, these opposing teams, and they're going to be like, what did Tennessee do? What did A&M do really well? And that's what they're going to try to work on. So Alabama, I think you know what the other team's going to try to do coming into the game, and they're going to slow the pace down. A&M typically slows the pace down. Auburn slows the pace down, especially this year. So it's going to be a low-scoring game, limited possessions. So you got to make every possession count, and especially when it comes to turnovers.
Okay, we'll move to more positive stuff and get to the comments in a second after I ask you this question. If I said, what's missing from Alabama right now? What's keeping them from looking their best? What do you think has changed about this team? For me, I'll give you my answer first, and you can play off of that. Okay. Javon Quinterly has been fantastic in a couple of games, but where has Mark Sears gone? Yeah. When this team was at its best, it was more Mark Sears and was not relying as much on Javon Quinterly to create a spark. What has happened to Mark Sears? That seems to me to be the difference between this offense now and what it used to be.
I agree with you. That's one of the things I had written down too. And look back at some games, and when Mark Sears is on, he's making threes. He's turning people over defensively. Alabama is really tough because then you can use Quinterly off the bench to man that second unit and come in and add a scoring threat, and also someone that can get in the lane and create for others. So I think it is Mark Sears just because he's been so good this season. I mean, you turn around and he's had 14, 15, then have some 20-point games. So he's been really, really good. So when he's making shots and he's getting downhill and he's forcing the defense to turn the ball over, he takes his Tide team to another level.
Let's get a couple of comments in here. Some good ones. Chris writes in, I think I saw that Alabama was 25 of their last 125 threes. That's not a good average, obviously. No. You don't get away from your DNA. They love to shoot the threes, but they're not falling. Now, in that process, they have beaten Arkansas, they have beaten Auburn, and now they've lost on the road to a really good Texas A&M team. Mm-hmm. And really, I think they had the ball, and before Sears threw it away, had a chance to tie or win that basketball game. So it's not, it's not a disaster, even though they're 25 of 125. Do you feel like, Riley, you're an old shooter? You feel like the shooters just got to keep shooting, and eventually this is going to turn around, maybe in the NCAA tournament?
I do. I think so. You can't go away from what you've been doing all year. I mean, you look at Noah Clowney, who went maybe like 0 for 18, I believe it was, at some point in the season on threes, and now he hit some big ones against A&M the other day. His shot looks good, and he just kept shooting and got out of the slump. The thing you don't want to do is change it up. You look back at the difference between last year's Alabama team and this year's Alabama team. Alabama's defense is night and day better than they were last year. They can win games when they've only made 7 threes. Compared to last year, it would be a stretch for them to win the game that they played against A&M this weekend. So moving forward, I think there's multiple ways Alabama can win, not just making threes. Defensively, getting to the foul line. They shot 11 free throws compared to A&M's 28 free throws. I mean, when another team makes 27 free throws and you make 10, that's a huge difference and a hard deficit to overcome.
Okay, a lot of comments. Jared says, keep shooting. Joey says, shots not falling because of tired legs. You were a shooter. When you get tired legs, they don't make for good shots, do they?
No, I think it could be a mix of that. But I know just from playing days, I mean, the training staff at Alabama and the nutrition staff is top level. So I don't necessarily think it's necessarily, tired legs. I think every gym that they play in presents a challenge in that the depth perception, the crowd, everything may be different. But going forward, all that's got to change. You got one game or you may be out of both of these tournaments. So you got to lock in and try to fix it.
Yeah. Jeff says, 5 days off is going to take care of those tired legs before they get back playing on Friday. Josh asked the question. He makes a statement. I publicly take my medicine. I said after the Tennessee game, Alabama needed Bradley to step up and take some of JQ's minutes for this team to peak. I was absolutely wrong. He's been great since. I don't know what it is. Alabama fans, for whatever reason, at least right now in this period of time, not huge Javon Quinterly fans. Without JQ, they don't beat Arkansas and they don't beat Auburn. He took some heat for the loss against Texas A&M, but Bradley's one guy, and Sears, those two aren't playing the same as they were at one point this year, and JQ's just filling in the gaps there. They need to get Bradley back into the mix as well, right?
They do. Bradley's got to come back, and he's got to which he played well the last couple games towards the end, but turning the ball over and just making plays for other players. He's got to get back doing to what he was doing early on in the year. And I know it's tougher, right? I mean, teams have a lot more film on you. They know what you like to do, what you don't like to do. So they're going to make it tough on you. But that's when you're playing the SEC ball. You're playing at Alabama for a reason. You're really, really good. So I expect him to kind of bounce back. But, yeah, Quinterly has definitely taking it to another level, and that just shows the veteran leadership and the years that he's played and how many games he's played. He's really been big for him down the stretch, though.
We'll talk about Auburn in a second after their big win over Tennessee, which I think punched their NCAA tournament. Remember to give us a like, thumbs up, or comment wherever you're watching us on all our video platforms. But first, Alabama in the SEC tournament. They don't play until Friday. They'll get the winner of the Florida-Mississippi State game. And if they win that one, they'll get either Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina, or Ole Miss. And then in the championship game, it would be A&M, Kentucky, or anybody else on that side of the bracket. Mm-hmm. Do you like that draw, that Florida-Mississippi State game, first game on Friday, and then either Missouri or Tennessee likely?
I do. I do like the draw. You're probably going to play Mississippi State. They're really good defense. I know last time Bama played them, they struggled. Struggles shooting the ball. They were slow start, just an all-around kind of one of those slower games that they came up in, crunch time and got a big win. So I think that's going to be a tough game. Alabama doesn't have – there's really not any easy games or easy wins in this tournament. I mean, every game's going to be a tough, 20, 40-minute game, and it's going to be every possession counts. So I think that they do have a favorable – draw, though. Having said that, Missouri, Tennessee is probably going to be your other quarterfinal matchup on Friday, and that's going to be a tough game. I mean, that's going to be a defensive game. Missouri's been playing pretty well as of late, and then you go to the other side of the bracket where it's going to be anybody can win. I mean, if Arkansas and Auburn, like you said, with Kentucky, and then Vanderbilt's been playing really well too. So it's going to be a tough draw, but I really do like Alabama's draw for the SEC tournament.
I think a little bit of the Alabama nation would love to get A&M one more time in that championship game in Nashville. Let's talk about Auburn, what they did. We'll get back to more of your comments in a second, but Riley Norris is the other guy in the box here. I'm Jim Dunaway. We are the next round. This is our basketball podcast. We'll do it again next week. Hopefully Riley's going to come join us live at Walk-Ons with our Selection Sunday show next Sunday. We'll watch Selection Sunday together, and we'll get around and watch and then react to that and talk about the upcoming NCAA tournament. We'll do that right after the selection show is done on CBS next Sunday from Walk-Ons with our friends at Redmond Vodka. Remember to go to our website, Next Round Live, and find the QR code and the link that will take you so you can go ahead and enter our bracket challenge and have a chance to win all of Chuck's bucks. $1 million and a lot of other great prizes from our friends at Redmond. So we look forward to seeing everybody next Sunday. And I don't know if LT's invited you at Riley, but we're hoping you're going to come out and hang out with us next Sunday. If not, join us on Zoom or something. And we look forward to that. Before Auburn, we talk about their big win that punched their ticket. Joe Lunardi does have a new bracketology out tonight. Mm-hmm. And Kansas, even though they lost to Texas, just like Alabama lost to Texas A&M, Kansas is the new number 1 overall seed. Alabama drops to the second overall number 1 seed in the tournament. Your thoughts on that? Both of them lost this week, but I guess the Texas loss is better than the Texas A&M loss in Joe Lunardi's eyes anyway.
Yeah, it was on the road at Texas, number 9 in the nation, who's really, really good. I think then it comes to, let's look at the resumes. They're very similar record. But when you have 15 quad 1 wins, it's hard to another team to overcome that. 15-6 in quad 1 games. Kansas is really, really good. I knew it was kind of back and forth between them and Bama for the overall number 1 seed, but I think you got to give Kansas a slight edge when you look at resume. I'm not saying that they're the better team if they were to play tomorrow, but I do think that if you look at resume and kind of going off that, you do have to give them the slight edge as of now. But anything can change. I mean, you got both conference tournaments coming up, so anything can change this next week.
I'm really shocked, to be honest with you, and I think I'm right about this. This was updated from Lenardi. This is the 5th, and it was updated at 8:00 tonight, so just a little over an hour ago. Auburn's win over Tennessee did not move them up a lot. They're still in the last 4 byes, which is a good place to be, but they're still an 11 seed. That surprises me. I thought Auburn beating Tennessee would lock them in. I just assume that there's no way Auburn's going to fall out of this tournament now, but they are still in a precarious place. And I'm also surprised that Mississippi State, who lost to Vandy, is still in the best situation of the last 4 in. There's still 3 teams behind them, keeping them from being the last team in. So Auburn's win only bumped them up 1 spot in Lenardi's eyes, and Mississippi State's loss didn't move them at all. Are you surprised by either one of those? Because to me, Auburn's a tournament team now. They're in. With that win over Tennessee and everything else they've done and some of their out-of-conference wins and who they played close down the stretch, I think Auburn's in this tournament.
Absolutely. I think Auburn's a lock in the tournament as well. I was surprised when I looked at that tonight and saw that they were still in one of the last 4 bye teams. So they're in as an 11 seed, but they're not in the last 4 game. I am shocked. I think Auburn, but I will say they play Arkansas first round SEC tournament. If they were to lose that game, I don't think it's going to affect them much on seeding, or they're not going to be necessarily out of the tournament. I think Arkansas, they had them as a 9 seed, 8 or 9 seed. So having said that, if they lose, they're still going to be in. But I was surprised. I'm surprised they weren't at least on a 10 seed. I could see them moving up 1 seed line. But having said that, they're going to still be in. I believe that Mississippi State's got some work to do. So I believe if Mississippi State drops to Florida, the Florida game, they're going to be out of the tournament. I don't think that you can stay around with a Vandy team who's not currently in the field and then a Florida team who's not currently in the field. So they still have a little work to do.
For this Auburn team, they led Alabama by 17 points in Coleman Coliseum. And they led them, we talked about this game many, many times on our podcast. They led down at Neville for 33 minutes of the game. And they only lost to Tennessee by a few points and at Texas A&M by a few points. This Auburn team is so close. And then they finally get the big win over Tennessee this weekend. What do you like about this Auburn team? What impresses you about Bruce Pearl's team this year?
They're resilient. I mean, you look at the year they've had, they've lost a lot of close games. Some games they probably should have won, like the Alabama game, they're in both of those till late. Tennessee game on the road at Tennessee. You look back at some of those games, the A&M game at A&M, I believe it was a close game up until late. So they're right there. If Auburn can make some shots like they showed they could against Alabama, at one point they were 9 of 11 or 8 of 11 from 3. So they were really knocking down some shots. They're going to be a tough out because they play so hard defensively. And you add Broom in the mix. I think Broom kind of makes them go. He gives them a down low kind of force that would, score around the basket with either hand. But then if they start doubling, he can kick it out. If they're making shots, if KD's making shots, if Wendell's making shots, if Flanagan's making shots, they're going to be tough. And they have some experience. So those guys have played in an NCAA tournament. They played in an SEC tournament. They played in meaningful games. So Auburn could be a tough out. And this time of the year is all about who gets hot at the right time. So that's what makes March Madness so fun.
NH3425, if Auburn gets to the semifinals or even the finals and loses, do you think they get bumped in the seeding? Don't think it'll happen, but you never know in March. I personally don't think they will move again downward 11. I think they can only play their way up, like you said, to a 10. Yeah. And I'm not even sure they can go higher than a 10. Maybe if they win it all, could get to a 9. But I don't think Auburn needs to worry at all. How much movement do you think? If let's say they beat Arkansas, there's a chance to go up to a 10 right there, right?
Possibly, but there's not. If you look back historically, I don't think there's a lot of movement going on within the SEC tournament or any type of conference tournament unless you win the tournament or you're one of the outside teams looking in and you make a little run. I know going into my senior year with Colin Sexton when he was at Alabama, we were, I believe, maybe one of the first 4 teams out. we go ahead and we make a little run and we beat Texas A&M, and it kind of put us over into the 9 seed. So having said that, I don't think you're going to move up a lot unless you win the whole thing. But a win like Arkansas is going to be big because you could move up to the 10 seed. But it's all up into the committee's hands, and we really don't know kind of what the committee's thinking right now. Joe Lenardi's pretty accurate, but who knows? You could move up a couple seed lines.
For me personally, I've always liked 7-10 better than I have 8-9, even
Yeah.
if I'm the 10.
Absolutely. Those are going to be similar, right? So, I mean, if you got 7, 10, and 8, 9, those 4 teams are probably going to be a high conference. So they're going to be ACC, Big Ten, SEC, somebody like that. So you're going to get a pretty even matchup. And then it's all about who you play the next seed. You want a 1 seed or you want 2 seed. So, yeah, I agree.
I'd rather have the 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those 1 seeds are a 1 for a reason.
That's right. So I've never understood I never want to be 8 or 9. I'd rather be 7 or 10. Don't give me that 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Alan says he thinks Auburn should be a 7 or 8. Arkansas being a 9 right now, and they're 10th in the SEC. That is pretty crazy. One other question before we talk about Auburn's trip in Nashville. Josh wants to know your opinion about Nick Pringle. Why doesn't he get more playing time? It seems every time he's on the court, good things happen. I've been a Nick Pringle fan for a long, long time. I agree with Josh. He gets things done. I think he's even playing, at least for the last 4 games, better basketball than Bediako is.
Yeah, I love Nick Pringle. Watching him, especially this past game, he brings such an energy, enthusiasm. He don't care about any stats. He's getting every rebound, trying to block every shot. So he's bringing that energy and effort off the bench, and he has to do that. Obviously, catching lobs and anything around the basket just adds extra value to the team. I do think that Bediako has been night and day between last year and this year. He's gotten a lot better, a lot stronger. But towards the end of the year, I know he's been in foul trouble these last few games, especially at A&M. So Pringle's been having to play more. But I do think that brings up a question for Nate, in some of these circumstances. Maybe the other team doesn't have a 7-footer. Can you play Pringle a little bit more, use him more in pick and roll and try to get some more lobs and just try to stretch the floor? But that's a good problem to have. 2 big guys that can both play and add value to your team.
Yeah. All right. So Auburn got their big win as well. Let's talk about Auburn in the SEC tournament. We mentioned Arkansas. Now, that's a good win, right? If you get that win,
Yes.
and if you lose, it doesn't hurt you. So I like that. Then if Auburn survives that, they get a Texas A&M team that they've had 2 pretty rough games with this year, both very physical.
Yeah.
That's not a bad matchup for them. And then they would likely get Kentucky, which was a disaster for them at Rupp. It's a tough draw for Auburn, but again, at this point, if you got a tough draw, probably doesn't knock you out of the tournament either. So I'd rather have those games than having to, be playing teams that if you lost to, it could knock you down a seed.
Yeah, because you look at it, could have been Florida and Arkansas switching spots, depending on how some games went this weekend. So you look at that, and it might be a little bit different. If you're Auburn looking at the Florida game, who's not in the tournament, they don't have Castleton, and you lose that game, then you might be on the bubble. So you never know with the committee. That's the thing. Once you're on these 11 seeds, or you're the last 4 in or the first 4 out, you don't know how that's going to go. But having said that, they got Arkansas, it's a good opportunity to win with Nick. They got Nick Smith Jr. back, who can absolutely score the ball, and he adds another dynamic to Arkansas. But that could be a quality win. And then A&M, I think on a neutral court, you never know. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. It don't matter who it is. So anything can happen on that. But like I said, they got a tough draw, tough side of the bracket. Kentucky's been playing really well as of late. So they got a lot of work to do, but you never know. If they get hot at the right time, they can make a run.
Okay, real quickly on Selection Sunday, and we'll wrap up with some of y'all's thoughts. But who's your 4 teams right now? The 4 best teams in the country right now. Don't worry about seedings, conferences, or anything. Who's your 4 best teams?
So I got Bama, Kansas, Houston, UCLA. I was kind of iffy on Houston. I watched Houston play again today. I think they're a really good team. Memphis gave them a really good game today, but Houston's guards are so scrappy. They're so tough. They're so athletic. If they're making shots, they're hard to play. They're hard to beat. You look at UCLA, who's had some good quality wins as of late. They beat Arizona the other night. I believe it was last night. They're playing really well. They got a veteran team who they play good defense. And then Bama and Kansas are the other 2 that round it out. And like I said, Jalen Wilson may be the best player in the country. He's really, really special. Kansas is really, really good, like I said, with 15 quad 1 wins. And then you got Alabama. Everyone knows kind of what Alabama can be and what they can do, especially when they're making shots.
Yeah, I wonder about Alabama right now. I agree with you on Kansas and Houston and UCLA. Um, I don't know. I want to see that old Alabama team
Yeah.
come back that I saw in January. I don't think anybody's been better than Alabama at some point this year. You
Hmm.
take Alabama's A+ game this year, and I
Yeah.
think it stacks up with Kansas and obviously Houston, who they beat, UCLA, and anybody. But I just wonder where they are right now, and I understand everything that's going on that
Yeah.
can wear on you, but they're not in the same place as they were, and that bothers me a little bit this time of year. But it's that time of year where you can get it all back.
That's it.
You say Josh says you like UCLA even with the injury to Jalen Clark.
Yeah, that puts a little strain on them, obviously, when you lose a guy like that. But you look at some of the guys they returned, and um, I just think that they play in some really good competition too. I mean, I know Arizona is a really good team. I had Arizona kind of early in the year; they were one of my top four teams, honestly. Just all the guys they got that can score, and they're big, and they run good offense, and they're up pace, and they score a lot of points. But it can go either way. I think UCLA, and I had Purdue on the outskirts. They didn't make the top four, but I think Purdue's beatable. They almost dropped a game to Illinois today.
I don't like Purdue. I don't. It's maybe it's
Yeah,
I'm so modern. I guess I'm an old guy, so I
yeah,
should like a big 7'4" guy in the middle and
yeah,
work it through him. But for some reason, it seems so antiquated now. The big
yeah.
guy seems to be getting in the way.
Absolutely. I think too. I think when you try to feed him in the post so much, and especially when your guards aren't making shots because they're going to double him, right? I mean, it's going to happen at some point. So if he's turning the ball over or he's passing it out, and they're not making shots. It's really going to be hard for them to win.
Yeah, and you know what's going to happen, Riley? They're going to get to one game, and he's going to get 3 first-half fouls. He's
Yeah,
going to get an early fourth foul. He's not going to play. He's going to play one game where he plays 18 minutes, and that's the
yeah.
one they're going to end up losing. Jeff wants to know how many SEC teams make the tournament for you. You think State gets in?
I think State gets in.
So
I
that's
think
8.
if they beat so 8, yeah, I believe 8. I think State's going to beat Florida on Thursday in the SEC tournament. So I think them beating Florida is going to kind of make them kind of punch their ticket, even if they lose to Alabama. Even if they beat Alabama, obviously, then they're going to be in. But with a loss to Alabama, I still think they make it.
Remember when you first got to Alabama, how hard it was just to get 3 or 4 SEC teams in, and now we
It
got
was.
8. Now we got
It,
8.
that's incredible. The
Yeah.
the league is really, really strong, and I've seen some people say it's a down year. I think the league's really, really strong, and that goes to show you what other people think of the league as well, with 8 teams that are currently projected in.
All right, the new bracketology has Alabama slipping down to the number 2 overall seed, still on the 1 line comfortably. Many people like Mike DeCourcy on our show Friday said there's no way Alabama falls off that 1 line, even if they lose the first game of the SEC tournament, which will be against the winner of the Florida Mississippi State game. Kansas is your new overall. If you're number 1 overall seed, if you're wondering, they're 15-6 in quad 1 games. They played 21 quad 1 games this year. Riley, man, thank you. We'll talk some basketball this week on the next round. Our live show's back 9 a.m. Central Monday through Friday. And then next Friday, we're live in Nashville. Saturday, we'll have some special shows from Nashville. And then on Sunday, we'll all be down at Walk-Ons 280 to watch the selection show with our friends at Redmond Vodka. And then we'll have a live show much like this one with Brownie, LT, me, and Riley Norris. So we look forward to that all happening coming up over the next week as we get ready for March, man. Enjoy your night, okay, Riley?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody.